Hey everybody, welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Essentials. Today we're going to be talking about chapter 17 on action-oriented communication. And I can't think of a more appropriate chapter to record today because today is a very special day for our portfolio at Hurt Family Investments. Alert Media was just acquired by Vista Equity in a really historic acquisition for Austin and for the CEO, Brian Kruger. Just an amazing outcome for all of us as investors. I was also proud to be an advisory board member of the company in addition to being an investor since the beginning, and all of the employees as well. And of course, their customers will benefit too. Vista Equity is an amazing software as a service, private equity shop, and known for creating a lot of value in those companies when they bought Marketo and other companies before. Alert Media is all about action-oriented communication. Just looking at their website here, right on the homepage, protect your people, protect your business, identify threats, and communicate faster during emergencies and other critical events. So it's all about pushing out messages as a software as a service platform for its customers when employees were in dire situation and need to be communicated to immediately about an approaching hurricane or a terrorist attack or anything like that. Really happy for them, and congratulations to the Alert Media team, and what a special day to be recording this chapter. So here we go. Chapter 17, Action-Oriented Communication. For this lesson from the Entrepreneur's Essentials, I'm finishing a month of action-oriented communication. In the past few weeks, we've had our Data.World executive team and then leadership team offsite. All hands, kickoff for the year at the Alamo Drafthouse, board meeting, and another event I co-host every year outside of Data.World. This week started by celebrating one of the greatest communicators in American history, Martin Luther King Jr. I watch his I Have a Dream speech every year, and of course I link to that here on Medium. And finished with our federal government finally reopening temporarily after a clear failure of action-oriented communication and the longest government shutdown in American history. Tonight, the Culturati Conference kicks off, and I link to that here on Medium, which is one of my favorite conferences of the year and the brainchild of the brilliant Eugene Sepulveda, and I'm hosting a dinner tonight about best practices in culture. I've been hosting since Culturati's inception 4 years ago. By this point in time, it'll be more years ago than that as I'm reading this, but you get the gist. I'm very proud to be involved, have hosted every year. So you could say that communication is clearly on my mind, and that is the focus for this lesson. So here we go with this lesson from the Entrepreneur's Essentials. It was first shared at Lucky7.io on January 31st, 2013. I made very few edits to the original post below, mostly in the area of readability and grammar, not in substance of content. After this lesson, I'll relate it to our world of modern communication at Data.World, including the use of Slack, Google Meet, of course our own platform, Data.World, etc. In startups, you have no time to waste. Every day counts. The opportunity cost of lost time is huge. Startup life can be short and fragile. So one way to get things done quickly is to communicate in an effective manner. I was thinking about this today while I was at the Wharton School serving as an entrepreneur in residence and talking about a lot of lessons learned at Bazaar Voice and Core Metrics. As I wrote about in this Lucky7.io post, which I linked to here on Medium, Bazaar Voice was one of the most capital efficient companies leading up to our IPO as compared to many companies that reach this milestone. Certainly one of the reasons this was the case is we wasted less time than most companies in how we chose to communicate with each other in order to get things done quickly. Here's an email I sent to our team at Bizarre Voice when the company was only 6 months old. Looking back at this email with today's communication modes, I would need to consider the use of Salesforce.com Chatter in addition to this list below. I would probably rank it right before or after email because it is more passive than the first three modes. It would depend on the type of message. And IM, or Instant Messenger, has now been replaced with texting as well as software like Microsoft Link, which are more secure and have built-in video conferencing features now that virtually all laptops and tablets can use because they have cameras built in. That makes IM even better than before, and in some situations may make it better than phone, assuming you're using the video conference features, which is closer to face-to-face, but still harder to read overall expressions and body language than the real in-person deal. As far as texting, I would rank it right in line with IM, but it is nice to not be tethered to a desktop or laptop of old to use it. IM, in the form of texting, is ubiquitous and portable with mobile phones. And you can use mobile apps like Tango now for both free texting and video conferencing as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection. From Brett Hurt. Okay, now I'm reading the email. Sent Thursday, November 10th, 2005 at 10:52 a.m. to all Bizarre Voice internal. Subject, Instant Messenger and preferred modes of communication. Reading this to you, it's funny to see that the way that I communicated with the Bizarre Voice team was via email in this way, but here we go. Team, please make sure to be on Instant Messenger anytime you're working. IM is a better method of communicating than email, especially for short, directional messages when there could be a lot of back and forth traffic flow. My preferred mode of communication for important one-on-one messages is, in this order, number 1, face-to-face, number 2, phone, number 3, instant messenger, number 4, email. It took me a while to learn this, especially since I grew up as a bulletin board system or BBS nerd. But trust me, this is how you maintain a very efficient communication flow. As I'm out of the office and in a hotel room with limited mobile phone availability, I want to use IM, but some of you aren't on IM, and it is frustrating. Email is superior for messages that need to be distributed to many people at the same time, like this one, and are better left archived, such as an important piece of industry news or research. This email is an example of a good message for me to reinforce at our all-hands meeting on Tuesday when we were all together face-to-face. Thanks. Brett A. Hurt, founder and CEO, Bizarre Voice Incorporated, connecting your community of customers. I was texting with the CEO of a company I recently backed last night. He used to work for us at Bizarre Voice and knows how important real-time communication is. He says at his company they're using Google Chat as well as their own IRC channel for additional flexibility when needed. But most importantly, he said they love the accelerated face-to-face conversations in their new office space. And that is the big point here. Instead of wasting time passively going back and forth on email to try to get important things done quickly, don't use it unless you yourself expect slow results. Especially don't use it if you know it is important, but you're choosing to hide behind the email due to your own insecurity or lack of hustle. I've seen way too many tasks drag out for days or weeks via email when they could have been solved with a simple 10-minute face-to-face conversation. It is way too easy for anyone to fall into this groove. and even email back and forth when they sit 50 feet away from each other. This is exactly how I was feeling when I wrote the email above so early in Bizarre Voices history. I saw some slowness creeping in because of the inevitable dependency on email, and I never wanted us to lose the hustle. Shortly after sending this email, I introduced Bizarre Voice to a life-changing book, Fierce Conversations, which I link to here on Medium. The statement this book made was profound. It taught even the most communication challenged people how important it was to have face-to-face conversations and how to have them, because life changes one fierce conversation at a time. Think about how true this is, whether it was your conversation to decide to get married, have children, start a company, and so on. This is the book I wished I had read when I was a younger programmer and more communication challenged myself. Life is too short not to be fierce. New Yorkers get this. They live in an environment of constant hustle, and it breeds fierce conversations. Don't get me wrong. Fierce does not mean rude. It means direct, honest, and action-oriented. It is actually more compassionate, and that we do not want to waste each other's time, and we want to win faster. Shortly after, fierce conversations became a mandatory part of ramping for new team members at Bizarre Voice. And then the people operations team found an even better book, Crucial Conversations, which I also link to here on Medium, which had a training program built into it that we began to use. Same point, but with a better training wrapper. The bottom line, don't waste time. Nothing beats a face-to-face communication mode or a communication mode where you can read each other's tone to be more clear and action-oriented. If you can't read each other's tone, then go for a mode that is real-time, whether that is something like Microsoft Link, texting, GChat, IRC, or whatever. And make sure everyone uses it. You'll win more, and you'll all have more fun too. So that is the end of this lesson as I wrote it years ago on lucky7.io. And wow, how much has changed on the tools front, but also how little has changed on the lesson learned front. At Data.World, we've used Slack since our beginning. I guess that makes us a fairly early adopter of the juggernaut that Slack has become today, valued at over $7 billion as a private company. You know, as I read this to you, just taking a pause here from reading, it's pretty incredible to think that, Salesforce.com came out with Chatter, and then they bought Slack in the largest acquisition in their company's history because of how much Slack won. So early adopter indeed, and well-deserved to the Slack team. Wish I had also been an investor in Slack. Replace Instant Messenger and Salesforce.com Chatter in the lesson with Slack, and then integrate Google Apps with it, Docs, Sheets, Drive, etc. And you have your own intranet, replacing Microsoft Link in the lesson. Of course, we also integrate Data.World with Slack, and we use our own platform obsessively when it comes to accessing our data and the resulting analyses of it. We've also had regular stand-up meetings since the beginning of Data.World, which was inspired by my co-founder and chief product officer, John Loynes. This includes the executive team. We meet every day, and we use Google Meet constantly to communicate with our clients, prospects, and each other. So we get plenty of in-person, video-driven, and instant messenger type communication at Data.World. Our top core value is determination, and we are clearly driven to succeed. However, I made a mistake at Data.World. We became too dependent on Slack because of just how easy it was. It is like we're always in a meeting, and the noise to signal ratio can be quite high. And the mistake I made was not having in-person quarterly all-hands meetings like we did at Bizarre Voice. I thought Well, we're having stand-ups all the time and we're constantly on Slack. But there is nothing like a good quarterly all hands meeting to get outside of the office and have some more long form communication to rally around the beginning of a quarter and reflect on achievements and lessons learned of the past quarter. Working with our culture club, we've since rectified that and just started to have them at the Alamo Draft House. This is a repeat of what we did at Bizarre Voice, but we couldn't think of anything better, and who doesn't love the Alamo, really? Our first was a few weeks ago, and it felt really good. Of course, since I'm reading this to you, and this was years ago that I wrote this particular chapter, we've had them ever since at the Alamo Draft House, and they've been awesome. Of course, we haven't had them during the pandemic, and I'll get to that in a moment. One of our newest team members sent me a private DM in Slack, of course, afterwards that said, "That was a fantastic day, like nothing at any place I've ever worked. Thank you." Reflecting more on this lesson is harder to live today than it was when I originally wrote this. My inboxes today include Slack, multiple groups in that, email, text, data.world, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and more. I've gotten rid of voicemail at least and have a mobile message asking people to please text me instead so I can call them back if it is urgent and get the high fidelity of a live conversation. Nevertheless, the lesson learned here remains the same. Be action-oriented in your communication practices and never forget the value of in-person communication, no matter how Slack or Google Meet or Zoom or Blue Jeans, etc., addicted you become. It's easy, but that doesn't mean it is the most effective to drive action. This is true in all cultures, whether you're primarily engineering driven or sales driven. And I'm glad we're back at the Alamo. I hope this helps you to be more effective in your own company. And I would love to hear your best practices for action-oriented communication. You can see the original post on lucky7.io for this lesson, along with an interesting comments thread from years ago. Ryan Cush, for example, makes a great point in the comments there. And I'm proud to say I work with him again today at Data.World. He's our incredible Chief Revenue Officer. So reflecting on this is the end of that chapter. We've been in the pandemic and we've been working from home now for a year. It's just past a year at Data.World. And we do so much via video conferencing and so much via Slack and so much via the Google apps and so much in terms of Data.World. But we can't wait to get back together in person. And there will be a lot of learnings out of this. And I think that our new normal is going to be better than our old normal because we're going to leverage the best of in-personness with the best of also working remotely a few days of the week and really being able to get stuff done quickly, but being a digital first company from the beginning. Still, the lessons remain the same. There's nothing like the high fidelity camaraderie of being together in person. So we're going to learn a lot from this pandemic, and we'll see how it goes years from now. Thanks again, and looking forward to you tuning in for the next chapter. Bye-bye.